Hi, I'm James Jangola from Google's Conversation Design team, and I'm here to show you how to apply the built-in hacks of everyday conversation to create cutting-edge, effortless, frictionless voice user interface designs, or VUIs. Now, a hack is a good thing in the sense of a creative, quick-thinking, agile, clever shortcut, but I looked in the dictionary, and the dictionary says that hacks are inelegant solutions. So, just so you know, because this is how I roll, I'm going to be offering you a feast of hack-like but elegant solutions, all courtesy of Mother Nature. That said, the title of this talk could have been,
Are you sitting down?
Great, you're all sitting down. But think about it. In a conversation, are you sitting down is a mental hack, isn't it? It's a shortcut. If you're on the phone and your friend or your whoever asks you, are you sitting down? They're not just asking you how your body is physically positioned in space. They're actually telling you something. They're telling you, brace yourself for some heavy news. You see, we have this amazing ability, and we take it for granted all the time. We have this amazing ability to look beyond superficial meanings, and instead we seek out deeper hidden ones based on the expectations of how the world and how our culture works. This ability is a reflex of what's called the cooperative principle. So I'm going to talk about our instinct to behave cooperatively in a conversation, not just to behave cooperatively ourselves, but also to expect the same from others, including software, including virtual assistants, which is why you're here today. First, we'll explore the cooperative principle, human to human. Then we'll turn to different areas of conversation design where there are opportunities to apply the principle in order to create a superior user experience. I'm going to show you how to make your actions more intuitive, more comfortable, more relevant, and more likable for your users. And I'll show you how mastery of this principle will save you and your designs from some of the amateur pitfalls that make VUIs so frustrating to use. I'm going to show you a lot of before and after examples, redesigns, so that you get the hang of it. So let's begin. What do you guys think of the following exchanges? And what do you infer about the personality of the speakers, Leslie and Max in particular? How likable are these people? Let's listen.
Do you know who's coming to the party?
Yes.
Can you play a song for me?
No.
So, what's strange about these exchanges? Grammatically, these are yes-no questions. They're looking for yes-no answers. But there's something uncomfortable about the literal yes-no responses themselves. What is it? Max and Leslie don't sound cooperative. Why doesn't Max just go ahead and tell Leslie who all is attending the party? What is the reason? I want to know the reason why Leslie can't indulge Max with a tune. Based on these brief exchanges, would you want these people to represent your brand? Would you endorse them at all for employment? Probably not. These examples show that conversation is more than just the literal exchange of information. According to the cooperative principle, we humans naturally assume and expect there to be an undercurrent of cooperation between participants or interlocutors of a conversation. This applies to the truth of what we say, the amount of information that we provide, the relevance of what we contribute, and the way in good faith we try to communicate clearly, without obscurity, without ambiguity. In the 1970s, the conversation theorist Paul Grice stated each one of these in the form of a rule known as Grice's maxims. But for the sake of simplicity, let's just call it the cooperative principle. That's a nice umbrella term for our purposes. So today, I'd like to focus on the maxims of quantity and manner. These are the two that will give you the biggest bang for the buck in the limited time we've got. The maxim of quantity gives us a principled understanding of why Max and Leslie's yes and no responses were uncooperative. You see, according to this rule of conversation, a speaker provides as much information as is necessary to advance the perceived purpose of the conversation, but not too much, and I'm going to show you lots of examples of that as well. Since Max and Leslie's answers didn't provide enough information to fulfill a purpose or to meaningfully move the topic forward, they violated the maxim of quantity, and that's what's wrong with those conversations, despite good grammar. You can find the maxim of quantity in the supermarket in the condiment section. Doesn't the word tomato seem uninformative or redundant on the label tomato ketchup? After all, isn't all ketchup made from tomatoes? In fact, the phrase tomato ketchup was once very informative, since the tomato was an innovative substitution for mollusks. In other words, oysters, mussels, etc. Likewise, when people say lady doctor or male nurse or white trash, they're informatively revealing their prejudice that doctors are, irony quotes, supposed to be male, nurses are supposed to be female, and trash is not supposed to be white. An insidious racial slur, not funny, this is an insidious racial slur that most people don't even realize. So what's going on here? People obey the maxim of quantity, and they tell you what they think you need to know for better or worse. And so often, this happens automatically, unconsciously. This next example is really key. Pay attention.
I really need a drink.
Have you been to the Eagle?
The answer is a question, but Alex must be cooperating with Sammy. This can't be a non sequitur, right? Assuming the cooperative principle, we can actually make 5 inferences from the answer, which is a question, have you been to the Eagle? 1, the Eagle serves drinks. 2, the drinks are probably alcoholic. Let's hope so. 3, the Eagle's open for business. It's operational. 4, the Eagle is nearby. It's in driving distance. It's not in Fresno or Nova Scotia. And the Eagle is a place that Sammy would probably like. Think of how important the cooperative principle must have been in terms of the evolution of the human species. We wouldn't get much accomplished if we had to spell everything out, unpacking each and every thought as if we had to explain how things work to aliens unfamiliar with our terrestrial ways. What Alex just did there on that last slide is an example of conversational implicature. That is, the speaker has just said something that leads the listener to make an inference, in this case, 5 of them. Speakers make implicatures and listeners make inferences all the time, and these shortcuts are the fallout of the cooperative principle acting on a library of shared world knowledge, knowledge that we share with our interlocutor. In the next example, we can make an inference that you probably take for granted. So the sentence is, last night, I saw Chris at a restaurant with a woman. Obviously, the woman was not our friend Chris's wife, even though biologically his wife is a woman. How do we know it's not his wife? Well, if she were his or her wife, the speaker would have said so in the interest of providing a satisfactory amount of information to move the conversation forward, the maxim of quantity. Next example.
How much longer will you be?
Fix yourself a snack.
Notice how this superficial invitation to go make a sandwich actually indicates an amount of time that the listener is probably not happy with. What if the listener has said, I'm putting my shoes on, right? The listener would have been a lot happier. The next example is already familiar, but let's add some more context.
Hey, what did that letter from the IRS say?
Are you sitting down?
And here's a speaker who appears to be uncooperative, but she's actually being very nice.
Hey, how did the interview go with that guy from Dunder Mifflin?
Well, he was on time, and he was wearing a beautiful tie.
We can be confident that the speaker cannot recommend this candidate for employment. The primary piece of shared world knowledge that makes this implicature possible is our familiarity with the saying, if you haven't got something nice to say about someone, right? Let's compare 2 answers to the same question.
How much did you pay for that shirt?
Don't you love it? I got it at Vinny's Vintage.
Versus,
How much did you pay for that shirt?
Don't you love it? Shirt has 5 letters, and 5 is my favorite number.
I'm glad you laughed. Why is one okay and not the other? Neither one answered the question. Why is one good and the other bad? It's because the first one has a basis in shared world knowledge, which is, it's not cool to ask people how much their stuff costs. The implicature here is, I won't tell you how much my stuff costs, but here's where you can go and find out yourself. Now let's see how we can apply the cooperative principle and conversational implicature to VUI design. Here's an example of a conversational implicature from the Google Home timer application. A timer is going off and the user says, Thank you. What should happen next? The assistant should infer that this is an expression of gratitude is only superficial. Drawing on her store of shared world knowledge, the assistant should understand the hack-like nature of thank you in this context. By implicature, the user is really saying, okay, you can turn it off, that will be all. Besides drawing inferences, a good assistant should also observe the maxim of quantity.
Show me pictures of the state flower of California.
The state flower of California. Here you go. By the way, it's called the California poppy.
Here, the assistant infers that the user does not know the name of the flower. Otherwise, they would have used it. So she provides that extra info, the quantity, to fill in the likely gap in the user's knowledge. In this next example, the user needs a ride, so they ask their assistant to speak to Druver. Druver answers, and here's what happens next.
Hello, Druver here. Unfortunately, I don't see any drivers within 20 minutes of you, but you can try again another time.
And the interaction just comes to a halt. Cooperative? Is that cooperative? Here's one possible redesign of that application that would advance the user's intent cooperatively and informatively.
Hello, Druver here. The nearest car is 20 minutes away. Does that work for you?
No.
I can check again in 2 or 3 minutes. Are you still interested?
All right.
Seems more cooperative, more likable, doesn't it? I think so. Now, this next example is a VUI adaptation of a real GUI. The interaction isn't conversational either. Again, it just dead ends, comes to an abrupt halt at the end. The context here is a power user knows that the delivery charge is usually $4.99.
Yes, ready to pay.
For this hour, the delivery charge has temporarily changed to $7.99 due to the high volume of orders received at Tasty Noodle House. Would you still like to proceed to checkout?
No.
And the interaction just stops. We can improve on this. How could we make this app's persona more appealing, more socially intelligent? Well, here's my idea for a redesign.
Yeah, ready to pay.
Just so you know, between 8 and 9 tonight, the delivery charge for this particular restaurant is $7.99. Do you want to go ahead and place your order?
No.
In that case, there are some other options in that area that are pretty similar. Are you interested?
Sure, why not?
Okay, here are 2 other noodle places nearby. Noodle and Doodle in Malvern, and there's Rasta Pasta in Valley Street.
So we've seen examples of informative assistance. Now let's turn to our users who can't resist the instinct to cooperate, to meaningfully advance the conversation as if they were interacting with another human.
And how many people are going?
It's my wife and myself.
Unfortunately, cooperative, informative contributions like my wife and myself will likely be rejected by the recognizer, which is often built to expect superficial, literal responses like the number 2. So that so-called error that you just heard is actually an example of verbal cooperation. If the recognition grammar can't handle cooperative responses, then use the rapid reprompt strategy in the first level no match prompt. For instance, sorry, how many was that? Compare a nice conversational prompt like, sorry, how many was that? With typical VUI speak, which would be something like, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Please speak the number of people in your party. You can say, for example, 2. Everyone seems to prefer the conversational version, which happens to debunk the myth that conversational means long-winded and verbose. In this next example, the VUI offers the possibility of paying right now with either Visa or MasterCard, but notice the way the user's prompted to respond.
Great, you can make a payment right now with Visa or MasterCard. So, would you like to pay now?
The VUI seems to be offering an either-or choice, but then serves the user a yes-no question, so the persona's intent feels ambiguous. The recognition grammar was designed to accept only yes, no, and synonyms, so cooperative users who said things like, yeah, Visa, were served an error prompt. You see, if you know about the cooperative principle, you don't need to find out about this stuff after the fact. You can spare yourselves time-consuming and expensive user research or the damage control of having to make major tuning changes to your recognition grammar after the fact. On the next slide, we have a no-input prompt that exemplifies a long-time industry standard. Let's listen.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything. What is your account number?
A no-input prompt when the user hasn't said anything at all. So put on the defensive, a cooperative user would be justified in explaining, you didn't hear anything because I didn't say anything. Yeah, it's likely that a user hasn't spoken because they haven't heard the question. Maybe they were distracted, they weren't paying attention. Here are a couple of more socially appropriate reprompts.
To get started, tell me your account number.
Yeah, just paraphrase it and ask as if they never heard the question to begin with. Here's another way you could do it.
Your account number is 10 digits long, and you can find it on your bill. It's in the upper right-hand corner, just under the date.
In VUI design, this reprompting strategy is called escalating detail, but the more general design term in other areas of design outside of VUI is progressive disclosure. Think about it. If I ask you a question and you don't answer, and then I come back with you and say, I didn't hear anything, that is so freaking rude. That's bad parenting. You can't do that. Stop it. Disconfirmations are when, but we've been doing that for 20 years or more. Yeah, we have to stop. Disconfirmations are when a user answers no to a confirmation prompt. Disconfirmations are a particularly gnarly problem in VUI design, and we can understand the challenge in terms of the cooperative principle, in particular, the maxim of quantity. So here's an example of a confirmation prompt. Let's listen.
Let me confirm that. That's from Boston to New York on July 15th at 6 p.m. Did I get that right?
Now, when the information's correct, users say yes or some synonym. Everybody's happy. But when it's wrong, that's the disconfirmation, users elaborate. And those cooperative details generally elude the recognizer, as we can see on the right. Obviously, it's not practical to put each and every one of these in your recognition grammar. You're going to dilute the recognition accuracy. As Tolstoy said in his novel Anna Karenina, happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy, each in its own way. Right? That's what's going on here. So here are some possible reprompts.
Sorry, was that right? Sorry, did I get that right?
Usability studies have shown time and time again that people just need a brief second chance to recover from a misrecognition error. This conversational approach stands in sharp contrast to industry cliches like this one.
If this is correct, say yes. Otherwise, say no.
When I hear this prompt, I don't imagine a friendly face. I see a flowchart. I see arrows springing from boxes, going from box to box. This style is inconsistent with the assistant metaphor, and so it undermines the integrity of the design of the assistant metaphor, the assistant user experience. Unfortunately, VUI users have had so many bad experiences with speech recognition technology and with amateur VUI designs that they've been trained over the years to say as little as possible. They'll also take prompts at their literal superficial reading, and they will not provide additional information that would be considered naturally cooperative. They're wary that this might trigger a misrecognition error, and that's understandable. Our design should accommodate for these cases as well, for these users as well.
Okay, I found one. Your driver, John, should arrive within 6 minutes in a black Toyota Prius. In the meantime, do you have the address for your destination handy?
Yes.
Great. What is it?
1950 Charleston Road, Mountain View.
Notice I didn't serve an error prompt at that point. I could have, but I didn't. I just, like when a little kid falls in summer camp, right? You just pick the kid up, brush them off, say, shiny, over there, right? Don't make a big deal out of it. Just move along smartly. So here, user A is more cautious with speech technology or simply prefers a step-by-step approach as a matter of preference. Maybe it's something to do with their personality. Then there's user B, who moves the conversation forward with the address right away, as you can see on the right. Right, they just give the address. Compare my easy breezy conversational proposal on that last slide with a popular alternative approach. Let's call this the neater flowchart approach.
In the meantime, feel free to tell me your destination address. If you don't have it handy, you can simply tell the driver when they arrive. Go ahead and say the address now.
There's too much going on in one step for everyday users. There's too much going on. Presumably, this design is to satisfy the programming metrics of economy and efficiency. The design is neat. It's just a single dialogue state, a single turn with a single piece of information to collect. But what if I don't have the address? I have to wait through a timeout to hear the next prompt. First, we can't possibly know what a user's timing out means. It could be timing out for any number of reasons. We can't ascribe an NLP interpretation to a timeout. We don't know what it means. Also, making people wait in silence is disrespectful of their time. It's abusive. That's why I hate using VUIs for customer service, because I don't like to time out, like wait through these timeouts. My time is really valuable. So this design strategy of having people time out in order to signal some meaningful response is antithetical to what conversation and cooperation are all about. The bottom line is that this type of design is alien to the true and natural way to manage information flow and turn-taking. And this is the product of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. This design just doesn't cut it. If you're thinking that this slide is a cheap trick, a straw man, think again. Design solutions paralleling this one frequently arise when economical and efficient appearing flowcharts are developed and deployed as VUIs with little regard to conversational expectations. So, start designing your conversational app with best path sample dialogues and then flowchart that. The goal is to create a superior conversational user experience, not a flowchart that's meant to impress. Users don't care what your flowchart looks like. Give people their turn. That's conversational. So making users wait through a timeout is one of my pet peeves as a VUI designer. The next few slides feature yet another annoying feature of lots of VUIs, another pet peeve, another bête noire, another bugaboo. I'm talking about applications that teach users what to say, as if the VUI were a touch tone application, like for technical support, press 1. For billing, press 2. To talk about your plan, press 3. You know those applications. So let's look at 2 ways to prompt users. Here's way 1.
For more options, say, tell me more. For more options, say, more options. For more options, say, continue.
And here's way number 2.
Want to hear a few more choices? Do you want to hear some more choices?
Now, here are those same 2 approaches applied to a messaging app. Let's see which one you prefer.
Here is your first new message from Amber Gomez, received today at 5:53 p.m.
Hi, I'm here. You're not? Where are you?
To hear the message again, say repeat. To reply to it, say reply. And to move on to the next one, say next.
Okay, thanks for bearing with that. Here's way number 2, applied to the same messaging app.
Here's your first new message. It's from Amber Gomez, received at 5:53 p.m.
Hi, I'm here. You're not? Where are you?
Play it again, reply, or go on to the next one.
I think it's safe to assume we all prefer VUI number 2, right? The implicature in VUI number 1 is that I don't know how to use English to get to the next message or to get someone to repeat. Why do I say that? The persona wouldn't be giving me the instructions otherwise. It's like last night I saw Chris at a restaurant with a woman, or tomato ketchup. Person's telling me that because they think it's informative to me. So, assuming cooperation, to repeat the message, say repeat, is supposed to be informative. The subtext is, proceed with caution. This interface is not intuitive. Your existing mental model of how English works will get you into trouble here. Follow my instructions, or else. Basically, the user experience is a linguistic straitjacket. So avoid teaching commands in a VUI. If you have to explain a command, something's wrong. Go back to the drawing board. This ain't touch tone. The whole point of offering the public a VUI is that speech is intuitive. Speech doesn't need to be taught, a la press 3 to do that, or press the star key to do that. This is cognitive load that's inherent to touch tone applications because no one was born knowing what pressing 1 or 2 would do. But in the VUI universe, that inherent burden is now superfluous. It's unjustified. Changing gears a bit, we've seen in the previous examples that saying too much is a violation of the maxim of quantity. Too much information implies irrelevance, and VUIs are despised around the world because their designers seem to have forgotten that VUI users are not reading, they're listening. And there's no way to fast forward in a VUI. Think about your own experiences in customer service applications, calling the bank, the airline, your cell phone provider. There's no way to fast forward in a VUI. There's no way to skip ahead of irrelevant messages, irrelevant options, irrelevant menus, intrusive upsells, legal disclaimers. We VUI users are at the mercy of the auditory signal. We're held captive to the linearity of the speech signal. So many VUI designers have forgotten that VUI use is inextricably linked to the passage of time. But irrelevance, which is practically a defining characteristic of VUI use, is not inherent to the technology. It's just bad design. Now we're at the forefront of an exciting new wave of VUI design. Smartphones, personal assistants, talking robots, and we use these devices voluntarily. We pay lots of money for them. Now compare this with the first wave of VUI design, which was all about customer service. Customer service isn't voluntary, so we consumers have been a captive audience, so to speak. We've been at their mercy. So I want to now look back into the history of VUI design, and I want to look at what's been so frustrating about VUI use, particularly with a view to relevance. I want to look at what's been so frustrating about VUI use historically, and let's try to analyze our frustration in terms of the cooperative principle. And hopefully, we won't repeat those mistakes because nowadays we cannot afford to. The audience is no longer captive in the new wave of VUI design. From a technical perspective, what exactly is uncooperative about please listen carefully as our menu options have recently changed? It's a message you hear all the time in customer service. It's irrelevant to pretty much everyone who listens to it. And of course, it would be absurd to try to fix it with the truth. The message would read something like this. Please listen carefully, 1, if you've called before, 2, if the menu options have changed since then, and 3, if you happen to remember what those options were. The translation is, please listen carefully because this interface is not at all intuitive. Am I wrong? By the way, it's not conversational to introduce a reason with the conjunction as. That's for literature. This feels like a letter written by a bureaucrat. This is not a likable person. In contrast, a good conversational participant keeps track of the conversation. I'm going to repeat that. A good conversational participant keeps track of the conversation. They have an operational memory of previous contributions and therefore a contextual awareness of their interlocutor. And this is what's wrong with please listen carefully as our menu options have recently changed. It's brashly, in your face, unaware of your context. And this message never bodes well for the quality of what follows. Here's more irrelevance in another staple of the VUI kitsch genre. Please say or enter your 10-digit telephone number 1 digit at a time, starting with the area code, followed by the pound sign. Punishment. If I worked for those companies, here's how I would design that experience.
What's your phone number?
430-0988.
And the area code?
917.
Right? Nandini's talk yesterday in conversation, there are no errors. Right? I could have played an error prompt here, but no. Look, shiny, over there. Just wipe yourself off. You're fine. You'll be okay. Easy breezy bike ride through the park. Likewise, on the next slide, not everyone has to be inconvenienced with having to listen to this largely irrelevant message.
Stop my service.
On what date would you like to stop your service? This can be any weekday in the future other than holidays. For example, June 25th. Please tell me the date now.
I was offended. This is a real prompt from a real system. I played it in text-to-speech right now for you, but when I heard this prompt, I was actually offended. Why was I offended? Because it sounds like the persona is accusing me of trying to steal from the utilities company. She's implying that I might be trying to stop my service in the past. Who would do such a thing? Not me. Yeah, it sounds like she thinks I'm trying to pull a fast one on the power company by trying to stop my service in the past. That sounds like stealing. I resent that. Here's what my proposed redesign for that application would be.
Stop my service.
Starting what date?
Today.
Actually, the soonest I can stop service is tomorrow. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
So I'm respecting the user's time, keeping my messages short and contextually relevant. I avoid the off-putting implication that my user is trying to stop service in the past. In other words, they're trying to steal. And this is an easy breezy, lightweight interaction. It's very conversational, and my strategy here keeps the dialogue on track. Here's another example from a utilities company, more irrelevance.
You have reached the interactive outage reporting system. To report an outage, please speak your responses when prompted. At any time, you can say, "Help to get assistance in completing the current task." If you are calling in regard to a natural gas issue, say gas. Otherwise, say electric.
The verbosity of this prompt is presumably to help users from getting into trouble with the recognizer, but none of this preoccupation is necessary, at least not yet. And it sounds like we're in for a rough ride. Anything irrelevant here for users who are not having problems with this app? Well, pretty much everything. Here's my redesign.
Hello, this is Sundance County's automated service for reporting power outages. To get started, are you calling about gas or electric?
I used to hear this voicemail recording pretty much every day at a company I used to work for. The message was, "The following 3 new messages have not been heard." I used to choke on that "have not been heard" part. If a message is new, doesn't that mean that I haven't heard it yet? It's a little bit like hearing, "This zebra has stripes." Don't all zebras have stripes? For me, a new message, by definition, is a message I haven't heard, in the same way that zebras have stripes. But in this system, a new message is 1, a message that has not been heard yet, or 2, a message that has been heard but not to completion, or 3, it has been heard to completion but you haven't archived it yet. Seems like a bit much for everyday people to grok. I bet they have other things on their minds. My colleague Margaret Urban coined the term tech-splaining. It means giving overly technical information that's lost on everyday users, like the following 3 new messages have not been heard. So here's a message from a pretty popular voice-only assistant. She says, "I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question I heard." For an everyday user, it would be enough for her to simply say that she didn't understand. She could even say she didn't understand the question. Why does she say that she didn't understand the question she heard? She can't read, it's only voice. Well, the message can be paraphrased. You asked a question. I might have misrecognized what you asked. Be that as it may, I tried to make sense out of what I heard, which might not have been what you actually said, but I couldn't figure out what that meant either, so sorry. For everyday users, this technical, nuanced thinking, the distinction between automatic speech recognition and natural language processing, this nuanced thinking that underlines the message is lost, and the persona just ends up sounding a little bit weird and otherworldly. So in these last few examples, we've seen how an excess of quantity can lead to some obscure expressions, which brings us to Grice's maxim of manner, which is, in a conversation, speakers avoid obscurity of expression and they avoid ambiguity. So speaking of obscurity and ambiguity, I want to look at 2 UIs whose technical use of language doesn't seem linguistically cooperative. I'm talking about how technologists understand the prepositions near and in. On TripAdvisor, we see that near is used as a synonym of in, but I'm a conference goer. I'm looking for hotels in Washington, D.C., not near Washington, D.C. I don't want to stay near Washington, I want to stay in Washington. For everyday folks, these words are not interchangeable. But this novel use of near seems to reflect the technologist's concern for a geographical radius, a range of distance. This unfamiliar, unclear use of language causes cognitive friction. Now hold that thought. If I'm in Mountain View, California, and I ask the Google Assistant for movies nearby, she tells me, here are some movies near Mountain View. Well, near me and near Mountain View are two different things, because I'm in Mountain View. So she tells me, here are some movies near Mountain View, but the movies she shows me are in Mountain View. So there's a couple of levels of mismatch here. This might make sense to an engineer, but to an everyday user, it feels like a bug. So this is something I'd like to see changed. And the solution is to just change near to around. Movies around Mountain View. Around Mountain View is pretty loose. We understand it means in the vicinity of, in rough, informal, conversational terms. So instead of redefining words for users, what about leveraging conversational language? Conversational language is itself a metaphor. And what is a metaphor? It's something familiar that helps us understand the unfamiliar. Familiar language is itself a gesture of cooperation. Let me give you some quick examples and then I'm going to wrap up.
The email for this contact is invalid.
Okay, leveraging the conversational metaphor of an assistant.
Actually, there's a problem with the way their email is listed in your address book. You might want to fix it later on.
Okay, here's another before and after example.
The pause limit has been reached.
The rewrite.
Looks like you need some more time.
Okay, a few more examples.
Your payee list currently contains the following payees.
Oh, come on. Does your shopping list contain peanut butter? I don't think so.
Sure, here's who you can pay.
Okay, last before and after.
The transaction you have requested is now complete.
My conversational rewrite.
Done.
Or.
And that went through.
Or.
Okay, you're all set.
So to sum up, the cooperative principle is at the gut of conversation. It perverts. Sorry about that. Easy for me to say. It pervades every turn, and I did that every time I rehearsed it. I made that same mistake. It pervades every turn in a dialogue. It's not an optional feature. There's no override. So imagine two types of talking primate. One group communicates with the cooperative principle and the other one doesn't. Which group do you think has the evolutionary advantage? Also, ask yourselves, why is legal language so hard to understand, so dense and so frustrating? Because the language of the law leaves nothing to inference. The language of the law assumes that you're going to act out of self-interest and take advantage of any potential loopholes. So it suspends assumption of the cooperative principle. The difficulties that you and I have with legal language are evidence of the practical necessity for the evolution of the cooperative principle in human cognition. And this, in my opinion, has been critical to the development of human civilization. So the main takeaways from this presentation are that people are naturally cooperative. We expect cooperation too, and this principle prevails over literal interpretations and the rules of logic. I've shown you the perils of irrelevance in conversation design. It disrespects users' time, it challenges their patience, and it reinforces frustrations with VUIs in general. But good VUI design optimizes for immediate relevance, so sharpen the user's focus and direct their attention by reducing auditory clutter. Respect the limits of short-term memory. The advantage of offering a VUI is that everyone already knows how to speak. So leverage the inherent intuitiveness of VUI. You don't need to teach touch-tone style commands. 3, recognition grammar should be constructed as much as possible to anticipate verbal cooperation. And let's please be more humble about what the industry calls recognition errors. This adjustment in attitude is sure to have an effect on the tone of the messages we write in response to so-called misrecs. 4, personalization means more than saying, "Welcome back, Pat." Truly satisfying personalization should begin with at least being informative and relevant from the user's point of view. So we haven't had much time today for a topic this big. Once we start delving into the complexities of conversation design, you see how vast this field really is. But if you found this talk worthwhile, we've got some great white papers online at g.co/devactionsdesign, written by myself and other people on our design team. There's quick reference guides, there's checklists, there's videos for however much time you have, 1 minute, 3 minutes, an hour. A lot of great resources there on that site. I believe we are out of time. Getting the signal from Monica saying, yes, we're out of time. Thank you, Monica. I'll be in the sandbox outside if you guys want to talk. Thank you.